Hey, you're with TheEZGZ, and we're not in my garage, we're in my neighbor's garage, and I was invited to help with a easy wiring system. This is a great system. I highly recommend it. These folks make a great product. It's vehicle specific. So this company's big enough and been doing this long enough, you tell them what exactly your car is and what you're doing, and they will custom build you a wiring harness, and you can put it in yourself. This will save you a lot of headaches. Everything is color coded. Each individual wire has got it's printed right in the side of it. It doesn't show up on the camera. I tried to do that. My macro doesn't work. But if you've got good vision or a magnifying glass, it's printed on each one, and it's labeled in the book so that you can put it together. I suggest that you rough it in like we're doing right now and double check everything. Then you can shorten it up. You can use your shrink tube and solder it, or use a crimp connector or whatever, but we're not sure what we're going to do and how this was set up for the bulbs that we got, which one's the high and low beam, so that it's easier to make changes. We've got these wire nuts on here that we're going to use. We're not going to have parking lights. We are going to try to change and use a parking light setup like I did on my car and put it inside the headlight. I showed him what I did. He liked it, so we're going to do the same thing on his car. You've got a real clean setup over here. Everything is clearly marked. He's not using the original alternator, and we were a little bit puzzled as to which one was the exciter and which one was the power, but we got it figured out because of the diagrams that were in the book and what we found online. We've got MSD distributor. We've got the wires on that. We want to make sure everything's working. We've got our choke in here. We've got our temperature sending unit on the back, and I found that Ford uses a little slip-on situation. They do on their coil as well. Mike didn't want the coil out here. He wants his engine compartment clean and shiny. So we put the coil inside the cab, and I'm not so sure how that works out in the long run, but I guess we'll find out. He tried to find a shorter water pump, had to move the radiator and grill forward a couple of inches, and we found on this fan that the wires were broke off, so hopefully I can take this off in the back and chase that down and put some new wires in there. The wiring came with an extra wire. It tells you that it wants you to run the main wiring harness down the driver's side, and I'd suggest that you follow those directions because Mike wanted to make a few changes and we had to change it back so that the length of the wires was proper without having to splice into them. I really don't like having splices that are hidden. When you wrap that electrician's that cable stuff around it to make things pretty, these wiring shrouds like this, and you have stuff that's hidden in there, you will have a tendency to forget where those are, and if you sell the car to somebody else and there's a problem with a bad connection in there, it is a nightmare to find it. Taping it all up, all that stuff is good, and the factory does its stuff, but there's no splices usually in there, and I recommend that you don't do that. You use continuous wire. The inside came out really really nice. It's color coded, and again, all the wires are labeled. It comes with a pre-wired fuse block that has all the correct colors and the correct size wires. Your flashers are in there. Your relays for your horn and your headlights are built in, and they have the proper size fuse and the proper size wire. We're using an ignition switch right here in the middle under the dash, out of sight. And the old gas tank, we're going to hide the wires there. These wires are going to go to the gauge. I suggest that you make them a little bit longer and tuck them up in there so that if you want to make changes or have problems with your gauges, you can move the dashboard out instead of laying underneath here trying to reach up into a difficult spot. Serviceability is always key in my mind. Our coil is going to be inside the car, and that ignition, the coil wires, we're going to coil up and we're going to leave them in here. We're not going to cut those short. That was just a suggestion. Everything's subject to change. It's kind of a build as you go situation. He bought this car. It was already a running hot rod, and he wanted to make some changes. It needed some work. He got it at a fair market value and wanted it to make it his own. So that's exactly what he's doing. We had to, the steering column, the switch came from a different company, and so we went online and we wrote down what their color code was, because you may find that you're going to have to make changes here. The headlight switch was another problem. It was made in Taiwan and it was poorly labeled. It seems like it's going to work, but it's got a dimmer rheostat here. This spring that you see underneath, we're not going to use that because this has just got LED lights on it, and bright and dim isn't going to be an issue. When you turn your headlights on, those LED lights on the dash will just come on full brightness. What else? Just make yourself notes, put it in a book with, and keep all your paperwork with the car. Mike has done that. He's got a cardboard box with everything that he bought for this car. His battery is going to sit underneath the bed of the truck on the frame side. Got a nice little battery box, and the starter solenoid is close to the battery, and then there's a wire going up to the starting motor. You're going to always have issues with the exhaust system on these kinds of cars, having things hot. He's got his master cylinder attached to the frame underneath, and he just wants it as sanitary as he can make it, and I will keep you updated. We've got brake lights and turn signals, nice ones that match on both sides. We've got wires for license plate and a dome light, air conditioning. This wiring package includes everything, and you can see all the scraps on the floor. We've bundled things and cut things and separated things, changed our mind a few different times, and that's real common. Another thing that I did before I got started, and it may just be paranoia on my part, but I asked Mike to sign a liability release form so that there's no warranty expressed or implied on my part. There's no liability for anything that might happen in the future with this car due to wiring. You don't know how many people's hands are going to be in it later on, and you know how lawyers are today. They're looking to put the blame on anybody they can and get money from anybody they can. So when it comes to safety, things like this, it's just a precaution I decided to take. Mike was a little puzzled about me wanting that, but he agreed to it and didn't have a problem. He just hadn't had the experience on it. He's a real smart guy. You'll meet him later on, and we're going to get started on this here today and get things moving. So I will turn you on. Hopefully this video turns out. Here's beautiful connectors. They give you wire ties. They give you a lot of stuff in this easy wiring kit. So give them a call if you're thinking about building a hot rod. It's a lot easier to spend that money up front than to be struggling with it over the life of the car while you're owning it. Okay, so in case I have camera problems in the future, thanks for watching. Thanks for subbing. TheEZGZ out. Okay, well, I finally got with Mike, and we're working on it. I wanted to get a little bit of closure for this video. I wish it was one of those videos that we could show you the finished product and start it up and you could see it run. But we've got quite a bit more work to do. Or Mike's got quite a bit more money to spend before we get to that part. But we did get the wiring in, and here's Mike, the owner. Say hi to folks. And we got together this afternoon, and we roughed this in just like I was talking about. And we were just scratching our heads, pulling our hair out. We got everything to work except these doggone rear tail lights and the brake light switch. We were using an electric brake light switch, and it seemed like when we pushed the button in that the brake lights would go out, and when we released the button, the brake lights would come on. And from my side of this whole thing, I'm used to using a hydraulic switch, which is normally open, and when you activate the master cylinder, it puts pressure on the switch and it closes the contact, and then you get your brake lights. Well, in this case, using an external electric switch, you have to change your way of thinking. The pedal is not going to push the switch closed. If you put the switch, follow me on this, if you have the switch mounted on your side of the pedal, then the pedal, the spring pressure from the pedal keeps the switch in the open position and the brake lights off. It's when you push down on the brakes, it then releases the pressure on that switch, closes the contactor, and then brake lights come on that way. And so we both had a little trouble wrapping our mind around that. We went to the auto parts store and said, this switch is bad. I checked it with an ohm meter, and in both positions I got a little bit of current, and we thought we had a bad switch. But the second one was just like the first one. It's only a $6 switch. Matter of fact, I think it's sitting over here. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, here we go. This is the type of switch that we bought at O'Reilly's, and right now it's closed, and when you push it in, it's open. So it's the reverse of what you would think it would be, and you just have to wrap your head around that. This afternoon I went ahead and wired the back of this gauge cluster. Now this is a metal dashboard for this 1930 Ford. I could get smacked here if I call it the wrong thing. So this is my ground, and if more than any other electrical issue on any type of car is grounds. So what I've done is taken the LED light, I've taken the black wire, and I've run it to the ground, and I could have wrapped this, I could have done it a little bit different ways and used yet less fittings, but I wanted to do it in this manner so that you can remove an individual gauge or do anything and not disturb the rest of it. So we've got our ground just kind of daisy chained, I call this, together, and then at this last one, the headlight switch is going to go over here, and it's got a mount, and we'll make sure that we have it grounded to the body real well. Then on this particular one, this is a voltmeter, and it is going to read voltage. The rest of these have an S where you've got the sending unit, and each one of these will get the particular wire from that particular device, sending unit, oil pressure. Let's just take a look at how nice these things look on this side. These are dolphin gauges, a real nice classic look. Here's your voltmeter. Come on, focus, focus, focus. There's your speedometer, fuel level, water temp, RPM, tachometer, and oil pressure. So it's a good clean setup. and we're going to add a light for the high beam indicator. I don't know if that's really necessary. On all my little home-built cars, I can tell when the high beams and low beams are on, and sometimes I even wait for somebody to flash me to remind me. Kind of like turn signals. The Dolphin instruments, I didn't really go into details on that. They are very nice as well, and they give you good clear wiring diagrams on everything. So it's if you can read, you can wire your car. So I just want to encourage folks to go ahead and do it, and I think it's a really great idea to get yourself a good wiring kit from a somebody that has it, because you're gonna have a lot less headaches in the end. So we're still working on it. We roughed it out. Now we're gonna start putting things back together and making the final connection, and at a later date on a separate video I may go ahead and finish it up a different way or put a part 2 to this. So thanks for watching, thanks for subbing. TheEZGZ and Mike out.